Ladies and gentlemen, Syrians want peace. I know in the news all what you see is war, destruction, and blood, but there is a simple reality that just like you, all of you, Syrian people would like to send their children to school knowing that they're gonna come back. And as long as this war continues, the only winner is going to be ISIS and other extreme groups. Every day of this conflict is costing us tens of innocent lives. It's a war on civilians. It's costing us tens of thousands of refugees every day are fleeing the country. It's destroying the most beautiful country, destroying your heritage. Syria's heritage is not Syria's own heritage, it's a world heritage. It's the heritage of each one of you is being destroyed or being sold to fund violence in Syria. The level of humanitarian suffering is just unbearable. What you've seen lately, the images of the child on the refugee child on the coast, this is just a drop of the unbearable humanitarian suffering inside the country. And probably for me, the most urgent reason why we have to push now, today, for peace in Syria is the fact that there is an entire generation growing through this war. How are you going to face it in 10, 15 years' time? Those children who are growing in the refugee camps with no hope, no future whatsoever, subject to all kinds of radicalization. Those children who are now growing in ISIS-controlled area, being groomed from birth into this very dangerous mentality, an entire generation. They have control of every aspect of their life. What are you going to do with them in 10, 15 years' time? The children who are growing through the war, who are receiving nothing but bombs and rockets from the sky, those children who have to pick up their friends' pieces as they've been shattered by a barrel bomb, they are full of anger, and this anger is directed toward the international community. How are we going to face them? What are we going to do with them? So it's absolutely urgent to work for peace in Syria and to get it now. And you may ask, well, is it even possible to get peace in Syria? And didn't they all come here to Geneva and failed even to talk to each other or get anything done? And I tell you, and from first-hand experience in brokering and being part of many track 2 negotiations, that yes, it's possible. I've seen and I witnessed and I took part in many talks that involve Syrian parties, but locally, not here, not somewhere, any international other place. The reality is that on the ground, people have different calculations. The army leaders, the militant leaders, they realize that after years of war, they're unable to deliver a victory and they're not losing. There's a military stalemate. So kind of that pushed them towards entering local negotiations. They also may have interest in having some access to resources in certain part of the country, so they enter negotiations. They are, surprisingly, influenced by pressure from civilians. Those people, I'm saying, they want peace. This pressure is translated or applied on them through a layer of civil society leaders or religious leaders or tribal leaders who take this pain, put it in front of those armed actors and say, we have to broker peace for them. Often also, they're motivated to go into talks because the simple need that they need the infrastructure to run. Syria has been divided to many parts of different security controls, but the reality is that water pipes, electricity, the roads know nothing about these front lines. They cross across them all. And all parties have an interest in keeping water, electricity, and the roads running. So there's so many talks, tens of talks, that have started for just to keep the water or electricity running or to keep the trade going between the north and south of the country. There have been talks amongst the unlikely members. For example, even ISIS and the Syrian government, they have talks now that succeeded, and as a result of which you've got water and electricity provided to Aleppo. Some of these talks succeed. For example, Barza deal, as a result of which 30,000 families have been able to go back to Barza. If this deal did not succeed, those people would probably be now refugees trying to make their way to Europe. But sadly, most of these local talks and truces fail. Why? First of all, the bad faith. There is no political will to resolve this conflict, certainly. Second of all, is the regional interference, especially from countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. I've been first-hand witness on how they spoiled many local peace deals. In Homs negotiations, the Iranians were sitting inside the room, inside the negotiation rooms, opposite a party that was supported by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. How do we expect this to work if the Saudis and the Iranians didn't settle their differences somewhere outside Syria? The second reason why they get spoiled is war economy. The Syrian formal economy have collapsed. There's a new war economy emerging. Everything is now dependent on the continuation of the war. So that developed a vested interest for the warring party to keep this war going and not to end it. And that war economy spoiled many peace deals. And there is something we can do about it. Is, for example, working on lifting the sanctions, which harmed the Syrian economy and made many people depend on the war itself. The last reason is the fact that we are failing those local peacemakers. They're often the doctors, like now all doctors in Al-Ghouta, for example. They went out of their way after seeing so many people dying as a result of the shelling, and they asked for a humanitarian truce, and no one is responding. They have no international mediators, no international peacekeepers, no facilitators, nothing there to their help. We are failing them by every way. We took their cause, for example, to everywhere in the world. We went to the Security Council, we spoke to a special envoy to Syria, we spoke to OCHA, we spoke to members of Security Council, and we managed to deliver nothing. All what they were asking for is just a simple delivery of a humanitarian aid into the besieged Ghouta. And why? The answers we often get is that there is no will at the Security Council yet to resolve this conflict. The Russians and the Americans are not ready yet. And it's time we look them in the eye. We look all these members of the Security Council, including the Russians, including the Americans, who are supporting parties to a war, not supporting the solution to the war. They are all as guilty in what's happening in Syria. After months and months of waiting, finally support arrived to Al-Ghouta. But it arrived to the armed actors, not to those doctors who asked for humanitarian aid. And now the armed actors, thanks to this support, who miraculously appeared in Ghouta, are able to carry on more attacks and more people are dying. So, yes, peace is possible in Syria, but only if we support the peacemakers, not the war makers. Thank you.